Hi there, Sandy here. Welcome to another polymer clay video at keepsakecrafts.net. Today I'm going to show you how to make this necklace inspired by plants that I found outside in the garden. So this is comfrey. It's a medicinal herb. Some people consider it a weed, but for centuries people have known that this plant has some wonderful healing properties. It was actually known as knit bone. Now, I'm no medicinal herb expert and I'm not going to give medical advice, but if you're interested in learning more, I suggest you look it up. C-O-M-F-R-E-Y, comfrey. It's a wonderful plant to have in the garden. But aside from that, I just love these pretty little lavender flowers that popped out. I love their shape. I love the way they droop down. And I thought I would make a necklace inspired by them. I'm not going to try to make an exact duplicate, but just get some of the details that I like. So what you need to start with is some translucent clay, and here I have Pardo art clay, translucent, and then a color. I just mixed a lavender that I liked, that I thought went well. And you just need about a 3/4 inch ball of each. And what you're going to do is start flattening these balls. You can use a roller to help you get started. You don't want to flatten them too much right at this point, because we're going to shape these into flat triangles in order to make a color blend. You may have seen the methods of making clay blends, rolling flat sheets of clay and then cutting them into perfect triangles, and that works fine. It's a great method, but this is kind of an easy way to do it when you only need a small amount of clay. So once you get the two of them together into a bit of a square or a rectangle, and notice I have plenty of clear on this side and plenty of purple on this side, so I won't lose my original colors in the blend. Now we're going to take this to the pasta machine, and I have a short length of dowel that's going to help me keep this blend narrow. So here's my pasta machine, and here's my clay piece. Now if I were just to feed this in like this, my clay piece would spread and would probably eventually accommodate the entire width of the rollers. But we don't want that in this case. And so what you can do is take a piece of dowel. I need to get some thicker ones, like 1-inch dowel would be good, but this will work. I've also used just packages of polymer clay stuck on there, anything to block the clay from spreading. And then we're going to send it through on the thickest setting. So we end up with something like that. And then we're going to fold it in half, and you always want like touching like. So translucent touching translucent, purple touching purple, fold it in half, feed it in, fold side first, and keep doing that. You always want to feed it in with the fold first or on the side so that you're not trapping air bubbles. And at first it will look like an utter mess, but eventually it will blend. You may have to squish in these sides. They may want to spread a little, but just squish them in, and this dowel will keep your piece from spreading further than you want it to. So you can cut these into a variety of lengths to use on different projects. So you keep rolling and blending until you have something that looks something like this. This isn't quite the way we want our blend to be oriented. So what I like to do when I need to squish a blend is I'll cut a piece like this into about 3 equal strips, stack them up, and then now I can start squishing them this way. And I'm going to try to get the area that blends from translucent to the darkest color to be about a 1/2 inch wide. And I'm not worried that it's kind of rippling here and such. I'm making a flower, and that actually is a common look in flowers, is that the colors kind of ripple and striate. You can see it doesn't take a whole lot of time. It's getting shorter this way and wider the other way, and that's exactly what we want. So once you get it so that your blend is going the other way, you're going to roll it out so you have a long piece like this. Again, keeping it to really under 1/2 inch wide from translucent to the darkest. And then once you get it to this point, roll it through your pasta machine this way, so feeding in the short end. Roll it through on the thickest setting, ratchet it down a few until you get it down to the thinnest setting of your machine. And you'll end up with something like this. You'll be able to get quite a few flowers out of this. First I'm going to cut off this end here that doesn't have much of the translucent, and then I'm just going to cut it in half. Now if we look at our pretty little flowers, they've got this nice rippled edge. Actually, if you look at them straight on from the inside, you'll see there's 5 sections. And here's an easy way to sort of replicate that. Take a ripple blade and go ahead and trim that pink edge. Now to form your flowers, you need something to form them over, and this is the perfect shape. However, I will warn you that I had some issues with this. The Armor All that I'm going to use as a release actually made the paint kind of come off. I don't know if you can see. It's like sticky and getting all over the place. So I really wouldn't recommend using something painted. Find something wooden. What I may do in the future to do more of these is actually sand down this handle and get the paint off of it entirely, and then use that as a form. But to do one for demonstration purposes, I'm just going to use this because it's what I have. So you can see some of the paint that came off. But doing it without the Armor All is tricky, and it's not easy to get a nicely shaped flower. So what I'm going to do is put a little Armor All on a paper towel and just roll the end of my paintbrush in it. And then I'm just going to roll the clay, leaving about 1/8, a little bit more than 1/8 of an inch of the clay sticking out beyond the end of the handle. And then just go ahead and roll until the clay touches itself, and it'll make a mark in the clay, and you can use your blade to cut it right on that line. And then those sides should meet perfectly. And what I like to use as a little rolling pin is actually a toothpick. Use the toothpick and roll that seam nice and smooth and secure. You really do want it secure because you're going to be tugging at it in a future step. So you don't want it to come undone. And then just go ahead and gently gather together. And this is why I didn't worry about making that neat up there, because I'm just going to gather all of this together up at the top and make a rounded kind of a dome up here. With this translucent, it responds better to gentle pats and persuasion rather than forcibleness. Sort of like a toddler or a grumpy husband. Just gentle taps and nudges. And if you need to smooth it out some more, if you got fingerprints that you're not happy with, use your little wooden rolling pin. And now what you need to get this off is a fine needle. My needle tool, if you see the two side by side, you can see how much bigger this is. You really want a fine needle because it will cause less distortion in your flower. And you just gently work it between the clay and the handle, and you just do a little bit at a time. And like I said, this can be done without the Armor All release. And maybe I should try something else as a release, baking soda or talcum powder or something. Like I said, it makes a mess of the paintbrush handle. But you just gently, slowly work your way around, loosening the clay from the handle. Don't go too fast or you'll poke a hole in your flower, or you'll make a distortion that's not pretty, and then you'll have to start again. So work your way until that you can tell I'm just about at the tip here. And then you can switch to the toothpick and kind of start to nudge that more translucent bit at the end off. You just want to be very patient here so you don't distort your shape. And eventually you'll just feel the whole thing loosen, and you'll be able to just take it right off. And then what I like to do is take my fingers and gently pinch those little points that were cut in there by the ripple blade, just to thin the edges and stretch them out a little bit and give the whole thing a bit of a flare and a shape. And this is why you really want to get that seam together as best you can. And I'm going to kind of thin this down a little down here, make it more tapered. And then to poke your hole for stringing, just look at it from the inside. Aim your needle tool right to that thickest part of the translucent clay and gently twist and twirl to make your hole. And then if you want to, you don't have to, but if you want, I filled mine with some perfect pearls because the insides had a little bit of black on them from the black paint that was on my paintbrush. So sometimes, mistakes and problems can end up being design changes that are improvements. So you just do this. And don't hold your piece over the perfect pearl when you're doing that, lest you drop your flower in and get the whole thing coated in perfect pearls, which was not what the plan was. Don't ask me how I know that. So I just filled the inside with pearls, so that's kind of pretty, something different. And then I put them like that on an index card and baked them at the manufacturer's recommended temperature for half an hour, so they'd be nice and strong. So here's a little bonus tip for you. After I finished recording the previous section, I went to make a few more flowers to finish my necklace. Now you might have noticed that I had spilled a little bit of the perfect pearls on my clay here. And I looked at it and said, oh, I didn't want perfect pearls on there. And then suddenly it was a forehead slap moment. The problem is the solution. So the solution, instead of using the Armor All, if you want mica powders on the inside of your flower, is to add the mica powders before you start rolling it up onto the form, such as your painted handle, which gets mucked up with Armor All, and just add the mica powders. Now you want to try to avoid this top bit, and then only add them to about maybe the third spike. And that will act as a release. So when you go to put your handle, to wrap it around the handle, it's not going to want to stick at all. Now you do want to make sure you don't get mica powders on that last bit because we do want that to stick. So just go ahead and roll that and then proceed as before. Now if you don't want mica powders on your piece, then Armor All is a good choice, but try to find an unpainted surface to use it on. And here are a few that I made and baked earlier. And although they don't look like much by themselves, once we add some painted details, string them with crystals and the leaves, they'll be really pretty. Now to make the leaves for your necklace, you're going to need a couple of comfrey leaves. Probably more than a couple, depending on how many leaves you're making. They do get worn out after a bit. So what I like to do is put one leaf under my sheet of clay. This is just some green that I mixed to a color I liked. And I rolled it out on my pasta machine on a number 6, which is a medium thin setting. So I'm going to put the leaf right under there. And then I'm going to, and notice I've got it backside up because the texture is more pronounced on the backside. And then I've got another one right on top of that. I left the tip sticking out so I could line them up. Don't be tempted to roll over this with your acrylic roller because it's too much pressure and you'll find yourself having to pick little bits of leaves out of the clay. Your fingers will give enough pressure to make a nice texture on both sides. So just, see, isn't that cool? I just love using real leaves to get a real leaf texture. And there it is, textured on both sides. And then what I have here are the 2 smallest teardrop cutters from the Sculpey Teardrop Cutter set. I'll have a link to that at my blog post. And I can cut a slightly larger leaf and a smaller leaf out of one of my leaf impressions. And then of course you do a whole bunch, many leaves as you want. And then I like to just kind of gently pinch the edges to get away that cookie cutter look and kind of make them look a bit more natural. And give them like a little bit of a twist and a shape. And once you've done that, you can take a needle tool and make a hole for stringing. Or if you don't want to do this now, you can also drill a hole after they're baked. And here are a bunch that I made earlier. If you're interested in the supplies I used in this project, there's a link in the upper right and in the description box to go to the accompanying blog post. So have fun making your flowers and your leaves. And next time I will show you how to add finishing details to the flowers and the leaves and how to string them all together into a really pretty necklace. If you like this video, consider becoming a patron. You can support this channel by sending $1 a month or whatever you can afford. Check out my Patreon page for details. And if you're new here and haven't already subscribed to my YouTube channel, make sure you do for 3 new video tutorials every week I upload on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. Thanks for watching. Happy creating. Bye-bye.